part of the Another Realm Media Network. Welcome to this episode of Mysterial Experiences, where we delve into the heart of mystery and the ethereal. Today we invite you on a voyage through shadowed realms of the unexplained. From spectral whispers to cosmic enigmas. Join us as we explore tales and phenomena that challenge our understanding of reality, in a quest to uncover truths hidden in the fabric of the extraordinary. Prepare for a journey into the unknown, where each revelation is a step closer to unraveling the mysterious. Welcome back to another episode of Mysterial Experiences. I'm your host, Josh Rutledge, and we have with us today a fantastic guest known as Joey the UFO Magnet, which is a fantastic name. I don't know. I guess we'll see if it is or not. Sometimes being a UFO magnet may not be a good thing. I don't know. But Joey, I think you were what you sent me. You were born in West Virginia, which is interesting because I was born in Kentucky, which is really close to there, Appalachian country anyway.
Yeah.
And
we're cousins somehow, I'm sure.
yeah. And you've had all kinds of experiences, not just UFO, paranormal, and psychic, and the whole kit and caboodle. So, we want to get into a lot of those conversations today. So, if there's anything that I didn't say, take a few minutes and let everybody know who you are.
Basically a contractor by trade. I'm also a guitarist. Played in several bands throughout the last 25, 26 years. I'm a flint napper. I'd like to make arrowheads and spearheads and stuff out of, the primitive way with just an antler and a rock. Mm-hmm. It's another hobby that I took on a few years ago. It's pretty difficult. I'm still getting there. I've made a lot more gravel than I've made actual artifacts or tools, but I've been playing guitar and other instruments for, like I said, about 26 years. The paranormal thing has been going on basically my whole life. I think I was about 4. The first memory I have of seeing something in the sky that I knew wasn't quite right, and I've also had a lot of spirit ghost type encounters, especially from the time I was about 9 when my uncle had passed away. I lived in San Antonio, Texas at the time, and stuff started ramping up from there as far as spirit in the spirit side of things, ghostly type stuff, and but it's pretty much followed me around my whole life. Anything odd will usually find me if it's around. And especially if I go looking for it, it definitely will rear its head.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you open the door, there's always something willing to step through, for sure.
Definitely.
Would you curious and feel free to tell me that's off limits, but I'm curious if how your parents responded to you experiencing things, or if you even shared that stuff with your parents at the time.
It was hard not to. Yeah. It was really hard not to. My mom, especially, is pretty much the same as I am. She doesn't really talk about it. She doesn't go on, on the internet or TV talking about it like I do, or on the news. But she's more of a background, kind of keep it to herself kind of person. But everyone in my family experienced, like, especially the spiritual and ghostly type happenings around all the places we lived when I was younger, and it's still happening to this day. Anywhere I go and anywhere she lives too. She's lived over on the south side of Tulsa for, 25 years, something like that now, the same house, and she still sends me videos from time to time of different things that are going on over there. And she also does like a German Shepherd rescue. Mm-hmm. And trains service German Shepherds, and she just recently sent me a couple of clips that she recorded of them. It looked like they were kind of terrified to go in a certain part of the house because something was there or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got two cats and a dog, and it's always interesting. Um, you know, um, orbs are a little bit of I think, a controversial topic
Yeah, dust. You
because
mean?
yeah, dust. Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
there.
and
Some of them
for
are
that
dust.
reason,
And,
right? Because
yeah,
dust
that we
does look like that on camera,
it does.
but cats and dogs don't typically respond to dust floating through the air.
All right, and dust doesn't typically pulsate and emit its own light from inside of itself, or have a
Right.
face usually.
So, for the people who see videos or pictures of orbs and say dust, to that I say, well, when my cat sees it and follows it across the room,
Tracks it. Yeah.
what? How is that done? Like and I will admit, I live in the Phoenix area. It's dusty here. It's a desert. We get a lot of dust, especially
Right.
in like when it's windy. And I have been walking around in my house and see the dust blow around, but my cats
Right.
and dog pay zero attention to it.
Hmm. Yeah.
But
If you were to shake a towel or a blanket or
right,
anything, like if I
right,
did this with my shirt and you had your light on your camera and you were filming it, there'd be orbs everywhere.
right.
But
But yeah, the ones
you
that
can definitely tell the
animals,
difference between one that has a purpose and what it's doing
right?
and where it's going and its intent,
Yeah,
compared to a speck of dust or a whole bunch of dust flying around, for sure.
and that's the other thing. Like I've got some more video where it's like you said, it's pulsating, it's flying with
Yeah.
intention, and again,
And
my cat
they always
comes
have
in and
a face
tracks
too.
it. So, huh?
They always have a face. All the real ones I've ever seen, it always seems like they have like a little cartoonish looking face for some reason.
Oh, I don't think I've ever paid attention to see if it had a face or not. Maybe I'll have to go
Yeah,
back and
I'll
look at the
send you some
videos and
pictures.
see. Um, but yeah, I mean, and of course, in the well, number one, I think there are spirits and things that are all over the place, but especially there is something about the Appalachia area, like Eastern Kentucky and West Virginia and Virginia and all that, and so there just seems to be a richness of, let's say, a concentration even of energy that it's attracted to that space.
It
Um,
seems to. They seem to be. I mean, mountains in general, or hills, large hills.
yeah,
I mean, that's one of my favorite places to go out here in Broken Arrow. Is right in the middle of town. It's this big hill that they built a Bass Pro Shop right by, and it's like the only undeveloped spot out of all of the hotels and stuff that came along with the Bass Pro Shop around there. They've developed everything around there except for this one hill
mm,
where people go up and go mudding and stuff when it rains and have forever, even before I was born. But you can see the whole city, 360 from up there. There's a big wild sage patch that grows up there that I go up there and
wow,
harvest sage from. There's wild oregano that grows up there. I've had several strange animal encounters up there. The disappearing crane thing with when I had 4 MUFON investigators up there for a sky watch with me. That happened at the end of the night. We were packing up to head out, and after having several pretty cool experiences all night, um, including a 5-planet alignment that happened.
wow,
Which was totally weird. It didn't look like 5 planets aligning to me. It was 5 totally separate orbs spread way
huh,
out that all came together slowly. It was intense, man. I don't know how planets did that exactly, but apparently that's what the astronomers said that it was. But
yeah,
it was a trip to see. But then after that, we were packing up our cameras. I was actually leaning over to put my camera in its case, and I get these weird feelings, that tell me to go outside or when to look and where to look. I
yeah,
got that feeling, so I turn around and look, and there's this huge silhouette, black silhouette of this bird, and it's massive. And I yelled out, "Look at that pterodactyl!" And that got everyone's attention. I was kind of laughing at myself, just being a smartass, But I mean, this thing was huge. It was like 6-7 foot wide
wow,
wingspan, And I mean, I couldn't tell how far away it was right at first. And so it could have been a pterodactyl for all I knew. But I had 4, I think 5 other people up there at the time. 4 were actually MUFON related investigators, including Mindy Topfest, who is now the dean of MUFON University,
yeah,
and she actually investigated my very first reported case in 2019, and we'd been trying to set that up for a while to where she could come out, because I'm just burying her in videos every single night, brand new material,
Yep.
pictures and videos of things in the sky. And she's like, every time I would send her one, she'd be like, "Did you report this? Did you report that one? Oh my God, did you report that?" I was
Yeah.
like, "No." I
I just
that
sent
was,
it to you, right?
yeah, that one case was the only one I ever reported, because it
Yeah.
was such a pretty clear picture of the triangle craft that I thought it was worth money at first. When I first saw it, I was like, "Wow, this is amazing." When I first looked at it after I took it, and so I went through this whole process of trying to figure out who to even send it to. I didn't know what to do with it, and then anyway, I came across them and whatever, and that's how I became friends with her. But I'm burying her in new material every night, and like I said, I was like, "No, I didn't report any of these." And then finally, about a month into this, as she's investigating my case, I finally told her, I was like, "Man, if I reported everything I saw, I wouldn't have time to do anything else or even breathe." And she was finally like, I'm starting to realize that. So ever since then, she was like, "Well, I gotta see, like everyone else, you can send pictures and videos, but eventually they want to see it for themselves,"
Right.
which is understandable. And I put out a worldwide invitation. Come on. Whenever you're ever in this area, come on, I'll show you. It's no trick of the camera tricks. There's no CGI. This is real shit that's going on all around all of us all the time.
Well, and I guess that's where so if we kind of touch on the nickname, the UFO magnet, it's because you have the capability of just, well, I guess let me ask the question. Maybe I'm assuming, is it a capability to call them in, or is it just that wherever you go, they go too?
And that's debatable, really. And the name the UFO magnet came from my buddy, fellow paranormal investigator Darren Evans. He was famous for the Zozo Ouija board demon. He actually gave me that name right before I went out to Vegas to do an event in 2019, and it just kind of stuck. So, but yeah, it's debatable, and it's like we were talking about a little earlier about Robert Bingham. He was known as the summoner, the UFO summoner, and he's really the guy who got me started, learning after experiencing these things my whole life, and not understanding a damn bit of it, whatsoever. And it was just all random and chaotic, seemingly. I didn't know what to make of it. Along, you add that with the ghost encounters and just the strange things. Like I have a video of a goose swimming up to me and saying hello in English.
Wow.
In a computerized voice, just all these weird things, these lightning bugs that do these strange things, swell up the size of a softball and start glowing red and blue marble swirls and stuff, and just off the wall stuff, man.
Wow.
Shit just doesn't happen. But for some reason around me, it constantly happens.
Yeah, so it's there's the idea or concept of well, number one, there's people who are like lightning rods, that this stuff is attracted to them in some way, or and then there's also the idea that the phenomena could just be, you could be so open to any experience that it's comfortable, if you will, around you, and so it just can express itself openly.
I think really I think that would be what it is that it just feels free around me to be. And I guess I create an environment that it just feels relaxing and comfortable at showing itself in. Seems to be the case to me.
Yeah.
Originally I thought, and until I ran into those videos of Robert Bingham by a total accident on YouTube 7 or 8 years ago, where he's out on this pier in Santa Monica or something. We got the TV cameras from another podcast. These two twins that are out there filming him, and kids are riding their bikes around and stuff. They're like, "Oh, what's going on? What's going on? Oh, this guy's about to call some UFOs out of the sky." And they're like, "Oh, okay." Well, let's see then. And then he does it, time after time. And I was like, wow, summoning UFOs is like a thing. I'd never heard of that before, and it started making me think. It's like, maybe that's what I'm doing. And
maybe for you though, it's
that makes way more sense. Yeah, that makes way more sense than just me being in the right place at the right time, thousands and thousands of times.
Yeah, exactly.
So I kind of I based everything off of that from then, and I learned a lot, and I progressed a lot more quickly. And he really helped me to understand, you know. And this is before I even talked to him. Eventually, I became pretty good friends with him, you know, over the phone and online. And we actually were in the works of planning some events, which may happen in the future.
Well, that's pretty cool. So, just, and I don't want to get too far into the how to, but I mean, there's others out there that kind of do this. I don't, the one person I'm not going to name right now, but there are others who do it. And they call it different things like conscious contact and stuff like that. But the general gist of all of it, right, is that you put yourself into a meditative state to where you're open to the experience, and then you ask for the experience to happen. Is that kind of the same process that you go through, or is it different?
I don't use the process really. It just
Okay.
happens with me. I just have to look. I mean, like I said, I get these strange feelings that,
Yeah.
like right now, I might get a feeling that, just randomly walk outside on the patio and something crazy will be flying by, and but it's kind of like an alarm. They kind of tell me when and where to look. So I don't know if it's just that I'm really calling them.
Yeah,
That is that process.
maybe they're calling you.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's like a two-way street there, I think. But I think it's more a matter of I don't know, that technique and that process does work. I teach that technique. What you just explained. That
Yeah.
is basically for someone who's not just naturally, in tune with it, or just
Yep.
whatever, born with that, whatever you want to call it. That is the technique that I practice and I preach, and that I teach people.
Well, it sounds like, and this is something I was talking to somebody else recently about. Um, that, like, they say that the right side of the brain is all dealing with like the creative parts of us, and the left side of the brain is like the logical, analytical thinking part. And I'm going to say this next statement, and it's not meant as an insult, and I hope you don't take it that way. But because you've been doing art, like playing guitar and all that kind of stuff, almost your entire life, you've stayed in touch more with the artistic side of your brain, and so that may
And I'm
be.
also a Pisces too, so that
There
too.
you, yeah,
I'm walking around with one side of my brain sticking out to here, and the other side.
yeah.
I
So
mean,
I
I
mean,
walk around like this constantly.
yeah, you only show you instead of leg day or arm day, you show up on brain day.
Right. Like Homer Simpson, where he's only doing curls with one
Yeah.
arm.
Yeah. But yeah, so it makes me wonder,
Logical
because
side of my brain is almost non-existent. I hate to
well,
say.
because like I've had quite a few experiences, but what's really hard for me is I'm very heavy on the left side. I'm very analytical and logical in my thinking, and all, and like I have a technological kind of job and all that kind of stuff. And so when I have an experience, I immediately go to quantify, qualify, label it, whatever it
Oh,
was that I have.
I do too. I won't
Okay.
interrupt.
So
We'll
that's
get to
what
that.
I always wondered if that for me gets in the way of being able to experience more,
Enjoy
because,
it.
you know,
Right. I'm the same way. I say that I'm one side brained, but
yeah.
no, I mean I have a whole process that I go through before I post anything, before I release any kind of content. I have a whole process that I go through. Before
Yeah.
this is something weird. I don't just walk. A lot of people think.
Again. So,
Well,
for those, I'm going to edit out a big chunk of the video because we lost Joey for a little bit, and it's because his Wi-Fi had an issue. But he said I was scratching my face, and he was talking about getting you're talking about getting a kind of a sign that something's going on. You need to pay attention to it. So a few years ago, I had shingles on the right side of my face,
ooh,
and which is odd for someone my age anyway. And then even more odd that it's on my face, because most of the time for most people, it's like around their waist and stuff. But anyway, so I had it on the side of my face, and so from like my where my hair starts down to my eyebrow and including my eyebrow, it's still, even now, like it's not, I don't feel everything exactly in this part of my face. It's still numb, let's say, at times.
Uh, like nerve damage, yeah.
Yeah, like nerve damage. And so what's really crazy though is that um over like the last probably 2 or 3 years since I had it, I get like a sensation in this part of my face when like something's going on, like either something psychic is
Yeah.
trying to connect with me, or like I'm getting, like when I'm starting, when I channel sometimes. So like, so if you're watching the podcast and you see me go like this on this side of my face, it's because I'm getting that tingling feeling, and it makes it kind of itch a little bit, and so I just kind of mess with
Yeah.
it. But so it's funny that was happening, and then you lost your Wi-Fi connection, because we've
I mean,
been.
you got to think. You got to go ahead.
I was just gonna say we've been plagued, it seems like, with technological issues trying to get this particular arrangement together. So
Right. Like I said, we're lucky that nothing's blown up yet. Because, like I was telling you, I did three of these podcasts in a row over the summer. That all three of them, two of them right before I went on, and these were live. Their equipment, the podcasters' equipment, just blew and went out. Had to buy all new gear.
well, I
And
hope that doesn't
the other
happen
one
again.
it wasn't until the editing process that
Yeah.
hers took a dive. But it's kind of strange. And that third one was the one that we captured several EVPs during the interview, and she was in the process of editing and going over that. Or yeah, the other two were live. Hers was recorded, and she was editing, and that's when her stuff just went. And Bob Dole has I think he still has his board up, hanging up in his studio on the wall, the one that blew up.
Wow.
So at least it hasn't gone that far yet.
Yeah,
We've
well,
had some technical
let's hope
difficulties,
it
but that's
doesn't,
probably
because I don't know that I can afford new equipment.
my human error. But
So-
the thing about the shingles, though, you got to think that as irritating and as much of a pain in the ass like some things might be, like shingles. Obviously, I've never had it, but my sister has, and I've known a couple of people that have had it. I've had chicken pox myself when I was a kid, but
Yeah.
so I'm susceptible to it, I guess.
Right.
Luckily, I've never had to deal with it. My grandfather had it real bad, and it doesn't look very enjoyable. But you got to think things like that, and like autism, schizophrenia, all these things. There might be some purpose behind those that we maybe not
Yeah.
understand. Autism and stuff like that. Schizophrenia. My ex-girlfriend was kind of schizophrenic. My cousin, who was like my brother, I never had a brother. I have 4 sisters. He's schizophrenic. It's a superpower, man. I have a son that's blind and autistic. I mean, they have these capabilities that,
Oh yeah.
I mean, far outshine any one of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
And people want to take those as debilitating disease, and they're crippled, and they're disabled. No, that's
Right.
far from the case. They're
Well,
superheroes.
I always
Rain Man.
well, like I wonder sometimes if, like, so let's say that you're hearing voices because you're a medium and spirits are trying to reach out to you and tell you things, but you grow up in a household that doesn't understand that part of life.
Right.
So they take you to a doctor, and the doctor says you're schizophrenic and you got split personalities or whatever the case may be. So, like, are a lot of our sometimes psychological diagnosis really just other things that haven't yet been quantified as like part of life
Mhm.
that we're misdiagnosing and throwing people on all kinds of meds and everything to handle when, maybe they should be taught how to, shield themselves or ground themselves or various other psychic techniques that would help control the things that are happening to them. So
Absolutely. I mean, autism is basically the best explanation I've ever got was actually from I don't know, it might have been Montel Williams or something, one of those old talk shows where they had this young girl on, and they had developed this computer program. She was, she didn't speak, which a lot of them don't, depending on how, where they are on the spectrum. But they had developed this computer program where she could hit certain keys and it would speak for her, Mm-hmm. But most autism cases are, it's their senses. They have a lot coming in at once, and they don't know how to, whether it's someone touching them or the feel, the texture of something, which my son has a lot like that. But this girl said, her explanation when she was asked what autism was to her and the definition of it, she said, imagine all of your senses, which we only have 5 that they preach to us. Supposedly there's way more than that we're just not made aware of, that they don't talk about, and we're able to tap into, but some of us. And she said, imagine all your senses being active and everything coming in all at once. So you're feeling everything, touching the air, even the body everywhere.
Yeah.
And you're hearing every single, my son for sure, because he's blind too as well.
Right.
He hears like a son of a bitch. And he can, first time I handed him a pair of drumsticks, man. And he didn't know what to do with them at first. He was just kind of like, what's up with this? He was holding them and he was like, kind of started clacking them together after a minute. But I took him back from him. I grabbed his hand and I hit that floor tom, while he was holding it a couple of times. And he went, and I did it again a little harder, and he went, and then I hit it one more time real hard, and he goes, and he just went, and he tensed up, and he goes, ah! He started cracking up, and he just started beating the hell out of him. And it was over from there. He loved it.
But yeah, I mean, I read a book about 2 years ago that this person was meeting with a mom of an autistic boy who was channeling, and he described it as he said, the people with autism, it's because more of their soul inhabits their body than other people, and so the body, like he described it as like if you take a glass, and let's say that everybody else, maybe their soul fills up to here on the glass, and so there's more room for expansion and to grow and stuff like that. But for people who are autistic, it's like all the way up here, and so anything else that you get flows over the top, and so that's why they are constantly moving and constantly whatever, is because they don't have any extra space to absorb and to grow from that. It just spills out. And so I thought that was a really interesting explanation.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so you do teach the technique, though, that is, I'm going to get us back on track. So you do teach the technique that is meditation, to call things in. Some people in the industry might call that a CE5. I like to call it a conscious contact.
I even call it CE5 as much as,
I don't want to, I don't think I'll ever be able to have Stephen Greer on the show, but I don't want to necessarily upset a lot of people that align. I understand what he's trying to do, at least from a meditation perspective, to get people to meditate and hopefully raise.
He's done a lot of work, He has done a lot of work. I'll give him that. Just most of it wasn't his work, but he has done a lot, and a lot of the stuff that he preaches and teaches are from what I've come to, from my experiences and understanding, are pretty much true. The ways to get to these states and to these results, pretty a good amount of what he's preaching is, I've proven myself. So
yeah,
for me, it's like I said, I don't have to I can't ever technically say that I've really ever meditated, and
it's really difficult for me.
Thought about it millions of times, and I know that I probably I'm kind of scared of what might happen if I did actually sit there and and focus for that long, I'm really terrified of what might happen because just walking around on a daily, the
Yeah.
things that go on during that are scary
You know,
enough. But for
throughout your,
people that aren't like that, yeah, if you're able to sit there and calm
yeah,
yourself, meditate, get into that state, that's what it takes because you have to actually connect. I'm already connected somehow. Like
yeah,
I'm
like I
I'm
said,
already
you're,
grandfathered in for whatever reason, and that's something I fight to find out every day is
yeah,
why.
it's like you're walking
And
around with your dial turned up to 50.
I'm up
Everybody
to
else
11.
has their dial turned down to like 5. You know, if you were to meditate, it'd be like turning it up to 50, 1500 or something.
Yeah,
What
it
would
would
that
go
be
to
like?
11 for sure. Allowed
Yeah.
11.
So, um, I mean, it's very interesting because, I've got to be, what I was going to say about with Greer stuff is basically to say anybody who's listening, if you're turned off by Greer and him as a person or whatever, just know that he's not his technique is not unique in the world of making contact. So if you want to,
No,
like,
he did not invent that technique.
so I mean, if you wanted to do it and not call it a CE5 or not follow the Greer method or whatever,
Human
you could,
initiated contact.
yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I've sat down with some friends to do a conscious contact before, and I've had a mixture of results. One time and one time only, we saw something, a light off in the distance. I've got it on video on my YouTube, but it's like the light is rotating and kind of like, I don't know, spinning. You can see the light edges like bulge at times, like it's not just a light that's shining, like it's moving in some way. Um, and but
Like
that's
it's
the only
moving
time
in
we've,
or in and out,
huh?
or like it's moving in and out, or what?
No, like it's I'll, I don't know how to describe it. It's like
A lot
it's
of those things are hard to
yeah,
describe. I know.
it's constantly at the same brightness, but it's like it's spinning in that, and it's what I imagine when, like, you've ever seen the graphic that exists of the moon moving around the earth and how it pulls at
Oh
the
yeah, the
water
fire
of the
graph.
earth, so the water kind of pulls out a little bit. That graphic,
Oh yeah, okay, okay.
that's what it kind of looked like. It was like spinning in, I don't know, the word I use is undulating, like it was just kind of,
Okay,
you know
right.
but and it was far off in the distance, which we went out the next day and looked, and like where it was coming from, it's just acres and acres and acres of BLM land. So it's not, there was nothing out there that would be causing it. You
Yeah.
could see it with the naked eye. The video that I've got on YouTube is with a Psionics night vision camera.
Oh
But
yeah, nice.
yeah. So I've had that one sighting doing it. Then we've had things, excuse me, with a spirit box. We've had stuff with a REM pod, but we've never seen another craft. Right? We've had other experiences doing conscious contact, but never seen another craft. And so I usually equate that to be like the craft is the initiation, and then your experience ramps up from there. And so
Hmm.
it's, they don't need to pull the craft out of the closet every single time if you are open to the next level of interaction.
Right. Yeah, that's what I always say is they'll usually give you what you can handle. You'll start it off like like breast milk, whatever. Then you move up to mushy peaches and onto solid food as you can handle it.
Right.
And that's generally from what I've seen. Except in my case, a couple of times I got a 9-course meal all at once. But and I wasn't. I don't think I was as ready for it as they thought I was because I kind of tripped out. But
Yeah.
that was number one on my all-time sighting list, which is still I don't know if that'll ever be beat. And I thought it was God coming towards me.
Wow.
But
The other question I wanted to ask you and this is just curiosity for me, is, um, were you brought up in a religious household, and are you
no,
religious?
no.
Okay. So the people that I've talked to who were not brought up,
Not anti-religious, but a lot of people
but
are
not
just straight.
practicing or whatever. Yeah.
I'm for whatever you want to believe. Go ahead and
Yeah.
believe it. I
Right.
don't like the fact that people are kind of brainwashed into these things a lot of times. But if
I,
if you decide that's what you want to believe and that's what you grew up to believe it, I mean,
yeah.
there comes a certain point when you get a little older, usually about 14, 15, where you decide flat out what you're going to believe or not, whether
Yeah.
you're going to go against what that's what rebel time right there between
Right.
13, well, saving 12 and 17. You pretty much decide what you think you want to be, and if you're against being a Christian or being whatever you were raised Baptist, uh, you usually decide if you're going to keep continue doing that or
Right.
living that way about that point. And if you want to continue to do that, then if you gain something
Right.
from that
If it enriches
to
your
where
life in some way.
continue
Yeah.
on with it, then feel free.
Yeah.
Might I
Well,
say?
the reason I ask is because I've talked to a lot of people, and it seems like those people who weren't raised in a religious household are more open to it in their adult life than those who weren't. Like I was raised Southern Baptist, and so I'm just now when I'm like, when I first got started, like in my late 30s, early 40s, I'm starting to reconnect with the phenomenon and what it means to me, and I've grown rapidly since doing so. But just curious, that it's a curiosity for me that I always like to check, because that seems to be the pattern: is people who were born into and grew up in a religious household were probably told that like whatever they were encountering was demons or whatever the case may be, and so they rejected it or they hid it away. And so those who weren't
But
were open.
right, I can tell you that one of the best times I've ever had in my life was in a Black Baptist church up at Grand Lake here in Oklahoma. A friend of mine took me out there. Him and his mom were going out there weekly, and we just happened to decide to go on the day where it was the pastor and his wife's 50th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
So they had a hell of a party going on that day. And that's one of the best times I've ever had in my life. Now, do I want to do that every week? No, not necessarily. But it was a good experience.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
and they had good things to say, and I mean, anytime people get together and have the same beliefs and believe actually what they're doing and what they're projecting, or trying to call in. Anytime you get a group of people together, just like the CE5, human initiated contact, whatever you want to call it, summoning UFOs, anytime you get a collective of people with the same desire, you tend to get good results,
Yeah, I definitely will agree. And I've been to a couple of black church services before too. And I'll tell you that growing up Southern Baptist, going to some of those other services, they are far more fun than the ones that I grew up going to.
Most of them are so lame. It's like, sitting through, for me anyway, algebra. I mean, I had to take pre-algebra 3 times and I still failed it. I mean, if I was any good at math, that'd be dangerous. You know what I mean? I mean, to me, it's just like, God, really? Who invented this? Why do people do this 3 times a week, whatever, once even? It's like, why would you put yourself through that? Living is not supposed to be drab and something you hate to do, but it's being made that way.
Yeah, you're talking about the
religion. I mean, if you're going to follow a religion, why would you follow one that is, I mean,
so boring?
So boring. For lack of a better term, boring. Excuse me. I'm not trying to offend.
Yeah, no. I
love going to church. I don't do it regularly, but I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
But I mean,
some of them are more fun than others.
Liven it up. There's no sense in acting like the dead before the funeral.
Yep.
All right, moving
on. So, I think we've got just a few more minutes and then wrap up here. So, one last question, and I think you sent this in your bio, and I can't remember. Have you had experience with Sasquatch?
No, that's one thing I haven't.
That's also on my
Um,
bucket list is Sasquatch. I've had just
I'd
about
say
everything
it's
else,
something
but
that,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, name it. Anything else? Talking geese, ghosts, UFOs, actual beings that I've come face to face with, I believe, that were wearing meat suits or whatever you want to call it. Name it. Anything else but Sasquatch. And it's probably, I mean, I would guess it's because it's a result of me not ever really even considering that is something that was going on, you know?
Hmm.
I mean, and now that I've, gained several more years in this whole faction of
Right.
paranormal and UFO stuff, and I've seen how crazy reality is compared to, say, movies and whatever. It's way crazier in real life than
Yep.
anything you could ever imagine. And I've started to realize this, and I mean, why wouldn't there be a Sasquatch?
Oh yeah. 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 For sure.
And I have recently, my friend Gentry Anderson, we go out rock hounding and, walking the riverbank quite often and, sneaking into different places and checking stuff out, arrowhead hunting, whatever it might be. And she's always actively looking for Sasquatch, calling out to him, leaving him treats like Santa Claus and stuff. I don't believe she'd ever seen one either. I think she's trying to, but I've kept my eye open for that recently in the last couple of years and
Yeah.
made it a possibility that that could be something that happens. And I've lived in several places. This being Oklahoma, there's a lot of wilderness around here, hills
Yep.
and stuff like that, and
Well,
a lot of the places I live are prime stomping ground for Sasquatch.
yeah. Well, I mean, there's Sasquatch reportings in Arizona, New Mexico. Like it doesn't have to be all pine trees and brush. I mean, there's apparently Sasquatch that roams around the desert too. So,
Yeah, why not? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
the closest I think I've come to seeing an actual Sasquatch would be probably my stepdad, Dwayne. He wears like a size 37 shoe, and he's almost as hairy, I think. But
You got a carpet on his
that's
back.
probably not supposed to. Yeah, yeah.
So, well,
So if you want,
go ahead.
I said if you want to count that, then
Yeah.
he's
Well,
probably laugh when he.
there was one last thing I wanted to ask you about because you sent me a message about it, and I'm curious is the thought you have around birds and how they are involved in the phenomena. Because, and I'll tell you, um, when I first kind of started waking up to the idea of all this other stuff that exists in reality, like you say, there was the buzzard that you see common around, like the turkey vulture that you see around like Kentucky and West Virginia and all that kind of stuff. That was my bird. Like anytime I would have a question or whatever, like there'd be like three birds would all of a sudden be there to kind of acknowledge in the affirmative or whatever. And so the buzzard is a very significant bird for me, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are on how birds are involved in all this.
You're not the only one with the buzzards, man. Video after video, probably hundreds of them of buzzards. You see, there was a long period where I couldn't tell the difference between a hawk and a buzzard when they were way up in the sky. So I always just thought they were hawks. But now that I'm a little smarter than that, I realized that a lot of the times they were buzzards. And I have a couple videos, at least a couple, where I was out on a job in Beggs, Oklahoma, helping my buddy Darren on a sighting job. And there was several occasions where there was red-tailed hawks, which are very distinguishable from a buzzard, But I was up on the roof for whatever reason, holding something for him or whatever while he was doing it, and
Yep.
the house backed up to this hill right in the backyard. I mean, you go about 20 yards back, and it went straight uphill. And so these buzzards and hawks would sit there and ride the current,
Yeah.
coming up the swept up the hill. And one of the times I was up on the roof, I got this feeling all of a sudden that told me to look. I turned around, and there's these birds spread out, from way down here all the way across, evenly spaced. And they all turned, as soon as I looked over that direction, they all turned at the exact same time towards me.
Wow.
From there all the way across, there was like 9 of them, I think, altogether. Maybe a couple more, a couple less. And they all started flying straight towards me at the exact same time. And they acted like synchronized swimmers, in the air. They were weaving in and out, making these patterns like diamonds, when you do the little thing with the yarn on your fingers to make the teacup. They were making those. They were making a teacup diamond shape, and the intricacy and the precision where they would come together and just at the perfect time and and create these patterns as they flew over my head. It was just mind-boggling. And it wasn't just a visual thing. I could feel them as they were doing it. And it was crazy, man. And there was a couple times where there was this one time, especially, there was this red-tailed hawk, and which I have a lot of encounters with over the last 8-9 years. They're magical birds, man. Just like the owls, the owls know things for some reason. I don't know what the deal is with that, but they know things, and I have a lot to say about that. You'll probably need another 5 more shows just for that topic, but hopefully we can get into that some other time. But these red-tailed hawks are just like they're like the messengers of the daytime, like the owls are of the night. Is the way I get it. And usually when you see one, especially when you have an encounter like this one that we had, there's definitely something that's coming or about to happen that you need to be aware of or look out for or be thankful for. It could be any one of those. That's the whole thing. You never really know. But I looked up, and once again, I'm on the roof, and I look up, and there's one like 5 feet above our head, just kind of, hanging, hovering right there. And it was like, whoa, what the hell is going on?
Wow.
I mean, I had so many bird encounters at just this one place, over a week span while we were. Sorry, I'm sinking a little lower into this couch. It's eating me.
That's all right.
So many bird encounters during that 1 week period, man, and they just continue. Like the crane thing, the disappearing crane at the hill that night when Mindy and all those other investigators were there. I mean, that was a huge bird, and it just vanished right in front, flew by us, and was just gone. And I've actually had several more encounters with that thing since, 5 or 6 altogether. And there's actually a Margie K. Unex Media published one of those accounts that you can read. It's also on her cryptids map. I have like 3 or 4 different encounters on there, mostly birds, the talking geese, I think. The disappearing crane. And Mindy likes to talk about that, the disappearing crane thing in almost every one of her interviews. It was pretty spectacular, and I'm continuing to have encounters with it.
Wow. So
I don't know what it means, but
I don't know.
It's always around, and I think that it's always been around, and I think that it might be an incarnation of the same thing, like the number one thing on my sighting list. Which I don't know if we probably don't have time to go into that, but I've only told that story 1 or 2 times on an interview. But this thing was like coming towards me. It started out as a ball of light on the horizon, and it kept getting closer and closer. And when it got up real close to me, it was like 3 football fields tall and like 2 wide. And it was this creature that I can't even hardly explain. It was like, I was describing it as like a cross between a jellyfish, like a bird, an octopus maybe, and like SpongeBob was flying towards me. And behind it, the sky was completely blacked out as far as you could see, east and west.
Wow.
And so this thing's coming towards me, taking more and more shape, and it's huge, and there's this black wall following it that's just churning back and forth. And I thought the world was about to end. I thought this was it.
Yeah. And
the closer I got, the more I could tell that the black sea behind it was blackbirds of some kind following this thing. And But the next day, this was such an unbelievable story. You know, I still don't even believe it, even though I went through it, I experienced it.
Yeah.
And the next day, I had a couple friends over in the same room, same second story window, looking out the same direction where I was trying to describe what I saw. And I'm pointing off in the horizon where it started, and I'm like, well, it kind of looked like and I looked over where I was pointing as I'm explaining, and I saw it again. It was there again. And this time I had witnesses. So just like the day before when it happened, I'm really freaking out now because I have people watching. They see it, for one thing. A lot of times people won't see the same thing you see. And it's getting closer and closer, but it wasn't exactly the same. This time it came a little faster. It looked the same the whole way towards me, and I had the window open, but it came a lot quicker this time. It didn't get huge like before.
Yeah.
This time, like at the last minute, I was like bracing for impact because it was there already, and it was coming right towards me and about to hit me, and it was a white crane. It got 20 feet away from me. I could make out what it was, and I'm like this because it's about to slam right into my face. And at the very last second, it's this close to hit me in the face, and it pulls up and goes over my roof at the last second. And tell me what kind of bird could do that. And I think that was my first encounter with that bird, that crane. I think the same entity or whatever, all these different times. I think it was the same thing as what I saw the day before that was massive, just in a different form. And I think it's been visiting me and been with me my whole life.
Have you ever looked up to see what the spiritual significance of a crane is?
Oh yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Long life, loyalty, and wisdom.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
I mean, any of them, the owl too. I mean,
yeah.
I once had an owl that was like, it seemed like it was 4 or 5 feet tall. It swooped down while I was walking back from the gas station one day, trying to pick me up. I think I thought it was going to. I look up and it's right here, like its claws are right here, about to grab onto me. I had my headphones in, looking down at my phone, messing with a song that I had recorded on there in my recording studio program. And I was kind of mixing it as I'm walking back to the house. And I walk behind the Walgreens, and back behind it in the alley. I'm walking around it and looking down the phone. I look up, and it was too late. If it wanted to, whatever it wanted to do, it was there. I mean, and as soon as I looked up, I mean, this thing was massive, and its wings were, I don't know, 5 feet wide at least, it seemed like. Yeah. But I guess it realized it wasn't going to be able to carry me off, so it, put on the air brakes, and it flapped its wings once, and it blew my hair back and about knocked the wind out of me.
Wow.
And all this happens within a quarter of a second. I realize it's there, and it flaps and and flies off into the trees, and I'm like standing there going, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
And that was crazy, man.
Well, that reminds me of the Mothman story from West Virginia, because that was originally described as a bird, more than a moth, and so it got Mothman because of Batman, from the TV show that was on at that time. And so, but yeah, I mean, it was always described as a big bird more so than a big moth. And so,
and apparently they're having pterodactyl sightings all over the place, especially in Missouri. They've had a lot of pterodactyl sightings lately, and I'm still waiting to see one of those too. But
yeah,
I mean, there's some crazy stuff going on.
Anyways, we don't want to wrap up. We've been going for about an hour or so. I want to give people an opportunity to find you, or to, anything that you got going on. I know you got a YouTube channel, which I will link to in the description, but can you give people the name of the YouTube channel?
You have the link already?
I will.
To the YouTube channel? Okay.
Yeah, but what's the name of the channel?
Yeah, on Facebook, it's Joey the UFO Magnet George.
Okay, awesome. So yeah.
On YouTube, same on Facebook, and then my website is theufomagnet.com, where you can actually book me by the hour for your own personal sky watches, where I will pull these things from the air or wherever it is they come from, and for you to take pictures of and enjoy for yourself. So skeptics, believers, people that have seen things, people that have never seen anything and don't believe in it, come on. I will show you.
Do you travel?
Almost. almost 100% guarantee.
Yeah. Almost.
That out there. A good 85%, I'll say.
Yeah. Well, that's better than probably most people would expect.
Who else in the world can tell you that and say that and produce? I don't know of anyone.
You don't charge. You don't charge $15,000 presumably a seat. So
no, it's reasonable. I mean, for what it is, I'd love to do it for free, but I mean, come on, now, nothing.
There's there's an energy exchange, and that's okay. So
definitely a huge one.
Yeah.
And no, I mean, 25 an hour, $30. You know.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
Nothing to see otherworldly beings, you know.
So, well, thanks everybody for.
It is.
Thanks, Joey, for being on the show, and thank you everybody who tuned in and listened. And as a reminder, if you have your own experience or if you'd like to come on the show and talk about your experience, you can email me at Josh Rutledge, that's RUTLEDGE, at mysterialexperiences.com. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please click that subscribe, click the follow, click the like, click all the things that let you know that the new episode is coming out. And until next time, have a good rest of your evening and a good weekend. Good night.